John chapter 7, we shall read from verse 1 until verse 13. John chapter 7, verses 1 to 13. We are looking at this sad passage of the Bible. People giving Jesus bad advice. People having all hidden agendas. Cowardice. Let us read John chapter 7 from verse 1 until verse 13. After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he did not want to walk in Judea, because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of tabernacles was at hand. His brothers therefore said to him, "Depart from here and go into Judea, that your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. For no one does anything in secret, while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For even his brothers did not believe in him. Then Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always ready. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it, that its works are evil. You go up to this feast. I am not yet going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come." When he had said these things to them, he remained in Galilee. But when his brothers had gone up, then he also went up to the feast, not openly, but as it were in secret. Then the Jews sought him at the feast, and said, "Where is he?" And there was much complaining among the people concerning him. Some said, "He is good." Others said, "No, on the contrary, he deceives the people." However, no one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. So far, the reading of the word of the Lord. Have you been a teenager? I have been a teenager. Here's what a lot of teenagers do. They get to that age and they want to be accepted by their peers, right? They want to belong. They want to have a group of guys and girls that they call their friends. Up until there, absolutely fine, normal, perfectly common. But then comes the problems. The peers, they have kind of a rite of passage. If you want to belong to a group, you got to do things. You got to talk like us. You got to look like us. You want to see people that look exactly the same, find a bunch of teenagers. All the same. You see one, you saw them all. They even try to dress the same. Oh, I remember the time that one of my friends, he started, you know those trousers that they're so long, they're like 2 times your size, and they pack up on the bottom. And they would even wear the trousers kind of in the middle of their butt. You know? And I remember when that looked like the fashion in Brazil. And they would walk, you could see their underwear showing, trousers really long, and you had to wear a special kind of shoes with those trousers. I remember that time. First thing I did, "Dad, can you buy me one of those trousers?" And then he bought the trousers and said, "Son, you realize that these trousers are like 3 times your size, right?" And I said, "I know, Dad, that's the point. I want to belong. We want to belong." But then, what happened when the peers, when the group, when they ask you to do things that you don't really like, that you find demeaning, that your parents don't approve, what do you do then? What do you do when you get to that stage? And then do you know what most teenagers find? They find that to be accepted, they got to conform. They got to act like the others. They got to belong. They want to belong. And so the peers become more and more demanding. And the teenager keeps finding more friction between his values, the values that he received at home, and the ones that they're enjoying with the groups, with their peers. And then they find out that the peers, they're not that patient. That if they don't conform on the most minute matter, they'll be called names. They'll be excluded. They'll be made fun at. It gets brutal at times. The bullying, I'm sure you have heard that word 1,000 times. It can be terrifying. Some teenagers commit suicide. I have read about that. I have heard about this. It's all over the news. Not a day, I think not a week goes by where you don't see this on the news. Especially if you search the topic, oh yeah, you're going to read about it. And then the teenagers realize that their friends are not really their friends, but they have no other group to call, to belong. And then they realize that they're so angry and they want to pour that anger upon someone. And then who do they choose? Instead of being angry at the friends for what they did to him, and they're still doing, they pour the anger at the parents. But why the parents? The parents loved them. The parents didn't demand the changes. The parents actually opposed the changes. But they still get angry with the parents. Why? Because they know that the parents still love them. And the parents will not retaliate with full force. But the peers, they may. They may. The peers may exclude them. The parents will still love them. The parents are not going to change their lock and say, you are no longer welcome. The peers may change the metaphorical lock and say, you are excluded from our group. Oh yeah, they may. They very well might do that. And then the teenager he feels frustrated. He feels that he has degraded himself. That the ones who loved him in the beginning are the ones that he hurt. And his so-called friends are not really his friends. But he still want to belong. And he went too far. And there's no going back by now. So what does he do? He becomes as bad as those peers, and he will demand the same kind of humiliation from the new guy. The neophyte, the new convert. They'll treat them badly. And the parents will feel that they lost a teenager, and they have no idea why even. Does that story sound familiar? Have you heard about something like this somewhere? I was a little bit like this. I did not have such a rebellious stage against my parents, but I did try to conform to my friends. It's one of the greatest shames that I have in my life. And at that time, if you would ask my peers, I would say, no, Felipe is not among those that conform well. But I know that on some levels I did conform. And I'm so embarrassed of that. People whose opinion today I despise their opinions. I don't think they have a single thing to add to me. And sometimes I even told them that. I'm like, dude, sorry, your opinion means nothing. Like, do you believe in God? Do you believe in the Bible? No? Then I'm sorry. Did I ask for your opinion? Please don't give your opinion again. It's a bunch of manure. Keep it to yourself. I remember being angry. I remember being so angry. But deep down I was angry with myself. I was angry with myself that I had a voice in me telling me, conform, be like them. You want to be accepted. This story aside, does it look like what we see here? It looks very much, isn't it? Look at what we just read here. Verse 12. And there was much complaining among the people concerning him. Some said, he's good. Others said, no, on the contrary, he deceives the people. However, no one, look at that. No, look at that. No one spoke openly of him for fear of the Jews. They feared the Jews. They didn't fear God. I think that's the anger that I had with myself as a teenager. I feared being rejected by my peers. See, I should fear losing my friendship with my dad and my mom. I mean, who bought stuff for me? Them. Who gave me food? Them. Who took me on vacation? Them. Who gave me great advice and I did not hear? Them. Who was so ready to forgive me when I asked for forgiveness? Them. Who did I get angry at? Them. Who did I choose over them? I chose my friends, not them. That's what they did to Jesus. Exactly that. The Jews couldn't care less. Couldn't care less. Remember the man that was born blind that Jesus healed him? And then they called the parents. Is this your son? Oh, that's our son. How come he sees now? Did Jesus heal him? And they were terrified. I can even imagine that they may have begun the conversation like this, and in the middle of the conversation they were like this, like scared little dogs. Well, we know. Yeah, he is our son. Yes, he was born blind. But how come he can see now? We don't know. You know, why don't you ask him? He has age enough. Ask him. And the Bible says that they spoke like this because they were afraid. Why they were afraid? Because the Jews had made an agreement. Let's kick out from the synagogue anybody that believes in Jesus. And they were afraid. Now you see, think about this. Think about this. Jesus healed their son from blindness. And who did they choose? The Jews. Instead of thinking, I'm sorry, but you guys, the religious authorities and Judaism and the synagogue, okay, fine, important. This fella here healed my son from blindness. I'm never picking you over him. That's the absolute minimum they could have done. But yet, they were still embarrassed. They were still afraid. Now, you may ask, how much do you value your son's sight? He never had it. He now has it. And you're still not choosing Jesus. You're still siding with the religious authorities that hate Jesus. What's wrong with your head? That's the absolute minimum you want to ask, isn't it? What's wrong with your head? I know the answer. Sin. The answer is very simple. Sin. The fear of man instead of the fear of God. Now here's the problem. You and I are full of that. That's the part that made me angry as a teenager, and that's the part that makes me angry until today. Why do I still have that fear of man? Why do I still have that fear of man? And I remember, as a teenager, I remember my dad telling me, son, you got to give attention to the one who pays your bills. Last time I checked, that was me. Doesn't the same reasoning works with our Father in heaven? Who paid my greatest bill? Jesus. Where did he pay? At the cross. How completely did he pay? Did he pay? Totally. Perfectly. Eternally. Effectively. Efficiently. Wholly. So the only opinion I should care is his. No one else's. But there's still that voice inside of me saying, Felipe, what will other people think of you? Let's take a look at the details of this text. Look at verse 1. Jesus was walking in Galilee. People wanted to kill him in Judea. They sought to kill him. And you see, Jesus, guys, many pastors, when they preach, and they have good intentions, I think, they preach that the Christian have to live a triumphant life. That the Christian life is victory after victory after victory. And if you ever have a defeat or any form of fear at all, is because you are lacking faith. But observe what Jesus was doing here on verse 1. Jesus was aware of an obvious danger. People were out to kill him. This was not a figment of his imagination. This was reality. Jesus considered his reality, and he thought, well, I'm going to get out of Judea, I'm going to go to Galilee, and I'm going to explore that area on my ministry right for now. Whenever comes a time, and the Father calls me back to come to Judea, I'll come. But for now, the situation in Judea is way too hot. It's not my time to die yet. So let me try another area. Jesus did not give us an example of triumphalism. Jesus did triumph. Jesus did defeat sin, the devil, and the world. He defeated every single enemy of his. No one defeated Christ, ever. But what was Jesus doing here? He was acknowledging that it was dangerous, and he thought, let me go to another area. The Bible says in the book of Proverbs that the fool sees the danger and goes ahead and suffers the consequences. So this is an act of wisdom. Christians, you and I, we are called to be wise. We are called to be wise and acknowledge difficult realities. When the reality is difficult, maybe you can have a different plan. Maybe you can try a different route. Certainly that is what Jesus is trying here. Now the Jews' feast of the tabernacles was at hand, according to verse 2. This feast was one of the, if not the most famous, most celebrated feast, meaning a feast that people really looked forward to. It was a time of a lot of festivities. They really had a happy time. It was a week long, actually 8 days even. Here's what they'll do. On the first day, it would be like a Sabbath. They were not supposed to work. There was a solemn convocation. They would attend public worship, and they were not to work on that day. And then from the second until the seventh day, they would celebrate. They would have a party pretty much the whole day. It was celebration the whole day. And they were supposed to live in tents. Actually, some translations, instead of saying tabernacles, they called booths. The Feast of Booths. Or some even say the Feast of Tents. So on this feast, God commanded, I think Leviticus chapter 23, He commanded that people take leaves from big, beautiful trees, or leafy trees, or willow of what? I even forgot the name. Willows of the brook. That's a kind of tree. You know those trees like a banana tree that has, the leaves are very large and they can make a lot of shade. So they'll take branches from these trees and make tents. And they were supposed to sleep on those tents for a week. So what would people do? I mean, they had their homes and they would build a tent outside of the house. And on those 7 days, they should sleep inside the tent. Maybe on the yard of their homes, or maybe on the streets, or out in the field. But they had to sleep there. And why? God commanded that they would do this for an entire week so that they would remember that their forefathers spent 40 years in the desert sleeping on tents. So they would value their history, so they would value what God did for them. So they would remember that they were taken out of Egypt and they had to live on tents for 40 years. Why 40 years? Because they disobeyed God. Guys, the trip from Egypt to Canaan, even with that amount of people, would not have taken more than 3 months. Even with that amount of people. They were there for 40 years because of their disobedience. So God made this feast, God commanded this feast, so people would remember disobedience led to this for 40 years. And then on the 8th day, they would have another solemn convocation. They would have worship, and that would be the last day of this feast. But look at how John writes this. Now the Jews' Feast of Tabernacles. He could have said the Feast of Tabernacles. Why did he say the Jews? Now remember, John speaks of the Jews as a category here, not as a race. But usually when he says the Jews, he's talking about the religious authorities. But still, this feast is not a feast of the religious authorities. It's a feast commanded by God. But so why did he say the Jews' feast of tabernacles? Because when John wrote this, he was already living, so-called, in the New Testament. He was aware that these feasts all pointed to Christ. So they did not need to keep them. They did not need to keep the Yom Kippur, the day of expiation. Why? Because Jesus is the expiation. So he realized, John knew, that these feasts were for Israel before Christ, not after Christ. So that's why he said, the feast of the Jews, not of God's people. Big difference. So he continues. His brother said to him, depart from here and go into Judea. Now, before I go any further, let me tell you one thing. Let me open a parenthesis here. Be careful from whom you hear advice. Be very careful. Not everybody can give advice. Not everybody is qualified to give advice. And not everybody. You should not be giving your attention to everybody. Please don't. These are brothers of Jesus. And their advice was terrible. Their advice was terrible. Look at what they're saying to Jesus. Depart from here and go into Judea. Didn't they know that people were trying to kill him in Judea? And they're saying, Jesus, you know what? Just go. Just go into Judea. That your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. Jesus, show your power. Let me tell Jesus, we know that you can do miracles. We have seen plenty of them. Here's our advice to you. Go and make a whole ton of miracles so people will not kill you. Go, Jesus, face the danger head on. That was their advice. Jesus, be a star. Show them what you got. And now they continue. Look at verse 4. For no one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. Jesus, look, you do all these miracles. Don't stop doing these miracles like in faraway places, here in Galilee. Go to Judea. Go to the center. Go to the big town. Have a big name to yourself. Maybe they had financial interest here, because if Jesus became a big name, the brothers could enjoy some financial benefit, maybe. And they continue, if you do these things, show yourself to the world. You see, they have a triumphalist view. Jesus, you can do it. You got the power. You have the miracles. You can do miracles. You can snap a finger. Jesus, just go and do it. Have you noticed that they did not mention God on their advice? They did not say, they did not even ask, Jesus, how come you don't want to go? Is it because you are still waiting to hear from God, your Father, whether you should go now or not, which was the case? Their advice was not, do you need anything? Or can we help you somehow? Or simply, why are you not going? We can see you are powerful. We can see you can rise above the difficulties. So what's happening? No. It's amazing. They thought they knew more than Jesus. Be very careful from whom you take advice. Be very careful. Be very careful. Going back to my introduction to today's sermon, there are some people whose advice we must make a point to never follow. Never follow. Be very careful when you hear advice from non-Christians. Be very careful. Their mindset is not the same as the Bible. Their precepts are not the ones that we find in the Bible. Yeah, they may give good advice here and there, but that may happen to be good advice. Be very careful. Guys, oftentimes, I seek advice because I don't know what to do. I have found many situations where people ask me for advice, and I said, man, I'm not sure. I want to ask people advice so that I can give you advice. But you talk to a teenager, it's amazing. He has an opinion about everything. Have you noticed? They know everything. They have an opinion about everything. And non-Christians, often they want to give the church advice. Dear church, you should be like this. What do you know about the Bible? Like, based on which biblical passage are you giving me that advice? Based on what? It's only their heads. Be careful from whom you take advice. But Felipe, that's my brother. Felipe, that's my sister. Oh, those were the brothers of Jesus. So what? Since when biology counts for wisdom? Since when? Now, let me tell you whom this advice sounds like. Let me show you. This advice reminds me of somebody's advice. Go there with me. Matthew chapter 4. Keep a finger on John 7 and open, please, with me, Matthew chapter 4. Let me show you somebody that gave a very similar advice. We call him Satan. That's the one. Matthew chapter 4, verse 5. Take a look at the advice of Satan. Then the devil took Jesus, into the holy city, set him on the pinnacle of the temple, all the way up there, and said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, he shall give his angels charge over you. And in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. What was the devil's advice? Jesus, here we are, you and I, top of the temple. This is Jerusalem. All the people down there. Jesus all the way on the top of the temple. Jesus, throw yourself. See, God chose you to be the Messiah, so you're not going to die, of course. God will not let you die, because you are the Messiah. You cannot die like this. So, and the Bible says, angels will uphold you. Jesus, show your jump. The angels will catch you, and everybody will go, oh. And everybody will be amazed at Jesus. Jesus, show yourself. Show them your power. That's the devil's advice. Doesn't it sound exactly like the advice of Jesus' brothers? Same story. Jesus, go. They want to kill you. Go there. Be bold, intrepid, courageous, and walk among them. And do miracles. Show off. Be a star. And then when your star is so huge, they'll not touch you. Now, that was their advice. Let me tell you how Jesus himself considered what he should do. Now, still with John, go to John 12. I need you there with me. John chapter 12. John chapter 12, verses 23 and 24, and then 31 and 32. So John chapter 12, beginning on verse 23. Look at this. But Jesus answered them, saying, the hour has come that the Son of Man should be glorified. Look at the language here. Do you know what Jesus was talking about here? His own death. He was going to the cross. What is the language? No, do you know what kind of language I would expect? The time of my tragedy is upon me. The lowest moment is upon me. The time of infinite tears has arrived. I would expect something dramatic like this. Jesus said, I'm going to be glorified. Huh. He was going to die on a cross. And in Jesus' head, that is my glory. I will be glorified, for I will be, from now until eternity, the Savior of the church. You see how in Jesus, in the heads of the brothers of Christ, glory was show off, be a star, do miracles. In Jesus' head, I will humbly submit to my Father, die for the sins of my people, and I shall be forever remembered as the one who paid for the sins of the church. Do you see how radically different these two things are? Radical. They have nothing to do with each other. Verse 24. Most assuredly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. Jesus' ministerial philosophy was like this. My success is 100% linked with my death. My dear followers, my dear disciples, pick up your cross and follow me. And with your following, with your sacrifice, with your death, the church will prosper. Does that sound like anything what the brothers of Jesus were suggesting? Nothing like it. Continue, still in this chapter here. Stay there with me. Look at verse 31. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. So Jesus is saying, now I'm going to defeat. I'm going to win now. My enemy, the devil, he's going down now. I'm going to kick him out. He will be cast out. His defeat is imminent. What's going to happen? Look at verse 32. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth. Now, what is this? Lifted up from the earth. You know what this is, don't you? The cross. When they tie him on the cross and then they lift the cross up with him tied up there. And he's hanging between heaven and the earth. He's hanging on the air, tied on a cross. Not tied, nailed to a cross. And he said, if I am lifted up from the earth on a cross, I will draw all peoples to myself. In the philosophy of the brothers of Jesus, his death would be his loss. In the philosophy of Christ, his death was the defeat of Satan and his own glory. Very different. Very different. Be careful whom you hear advice from. Be careful. Here's what I heard, and I heard this more than once. Oh, my daughter was a mother. My daughter got married, but she's unhappy with her marriage now. I told her, divorce. You know, Felipe, she deserves to be happy, right? See, you look at it, it makes sense. But if you read one chapter of the Bible, you know that that is precisely the opposite what we are called to do. See, we are called to be happy as we enjoy Christ, regardless of the circumstances. You know somebody that had problem on his marriage? Let me tell that person. Jesus. The bride of Christ, the church, gives him trouble day in and day out. If you consider yourself a born-again believer, I hope you do, you are the bride of Christ. I consider myself a born-again believer. I'm the bride of Christ. Which day went by that I did not give Jesus trouble? Now, imagine Jesus saying, Felipe, you know what? I want to be happy, man. Like, I'm going to divorce you. Imagine Jesus saying that to me. That's my tragedy. That's my hell. Literally. That's my condemnation. You see, radically different. Radically different. Let's go back to John 7, verse 5. For even his brothers did not believe him. How sad. How sad. Terrifying even. Can you imagine? The guy had Jesus for a brother. I'll say this again. These guys had Jesus, and girls, I suppose, they had Jesus for a brother. And they still did not believe. They still did not believe. How? Jesus never sinned. See, I have seen my own brothers and myself and my parents sinning more times than I can count. And they had a brother that never sinned. And they still did not connect the dots. Still. They were still... think about it. The Savior was physically right in front of them. Brothers and sisters, I wish, but I cannot. I wish that I could materialize Jesus in front of you. I wish I could materialize Jesus in front of me so that I could talk to him. But we can't. People that had Jesus in front of them, often did not believe in Jesus. Behold the challenge we have. You have never seen Jesus face to face. And I think you're going to die like that. I have never seen Jesus face to face. I really think I'm going to die like that. Yet I'm called to believe him. Yet I'm called to trust him in a way that the brothers who saw didn't believe. But now comes Jesus' reply. And Jesus' reply was not polite. Guys, let me tell this. Politeness is something good. Politeness is not a commandment, okay? Just to let you know. Now, maybe in your head you're thinking, excellent, I'm going to be rude as much as I want. No. But the point is, there is time and place for an answer that is like an arrow on the target. There's time and place for that. You and I should do that sometimes. Sometimes. Jesus did that. Look at this. My time has not yet come, but your time is always ready. Do you know what he's saying here? He's saying, I live by the Father's schedule. So, I don't care for my time. I wait until the Father directs me. So, if my time is not here, it's because he doesn't want. So, I wait for him. But you guys, who couldn't care less about God, who has no concern whatsoever for God's schedule, your time is always before you. You are the owner of your schedule. God owns mine. God owns my schedule. So my time is not here. When is my time going to be here? When he tells me it is here. When he tells me it is here, okay, then it is here. But for now, you guys, you are the ones that makes the decisions. So you guys have your times always ready. I wait for my Father. You don't. You should, but you don't. And then he continues. And let me tell you why they persecute me and not you. The world cannot hate you. But he hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. I remember in high school when I used to tell some of my non-Christian friends would try to make fun of Christianity and make fun of me as well. And I would tell them, dude, what I have is 1,000 times better than what you have. What do you have? All you have is your messed up head, and believe me, it is messed up. Now, when you say that to people's face, they tend to take it to heart. They don't like it. Try it and you find out. They don't like it. But that's exactly what Jesus did. All the time. Here's what he's saying. I fear God, you don't. Let me tell you why the devil is not after you. Because you play on his team. That's what he's saying here. Why would the devil go after his own soldiers? The devil is not stupid like you are. So look at this. Let me tell you why the world hates me, why they want to see me on a cross. Because I have said, you belong... Guys, literally, Jesus said that. You are sons of your father, the devil. For he is a liar since the beginning, like you guys are